This is apropos. Opposition groups in Italy are accusing the government of freeing the head of Libya's judicial police because it relies on Libyan security forces to check the flow of African migrants crossing the Mediterranean, saying authorities in Rome did not want to antagonise them by arresting such a high-profile figure. Osama Njeem was released despite being wanted by the International Criminal Court over a string of human rights abuses, including murder, torture and rape. Our correspondents in Italy have been meeting one of his alleged victims, a migrant from South Sudan. France 24's Natalia Mendoza reports.
Just like many other migrants who arrive in Italy, Lam finds it difficult to forget the nightmare he went through in Libya. After trying to cross the Mediterranean in 2020, he was sent to Mitiga prison on the outskirts of Tripoli.
I will be tortured. They tie your legs, they use electric wire, electric cable and a plastic stick, and they put your leg on the chair and they start beating you. During the night you can't sleep because of the screaming, the torturing, and also the people who have been, because they kill people inside the prison too. They will be calling migrants to come and put the dead body in the body bags, you know.
The prison director, Osama Al-Masri, the head of Libya's judicial police, who was arrested late January in Italy on a warrant issued by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity.
I saw Al-Masri, yes. I saw him. He's the boss, he's in charge of everything. Al-Masri is running. We were trying to escape. He came with a pistol and he started beating us with the police, with his soldier. The moment I heard the news that Al-Masri was arrested, I was so happy. And then I saw that justice will take place.
But Lam was rapidly disillusioned. Not long after, Al-Masri was released and flown back to Tripoli on a plane chartered by the Italian government. Lam decided to lodge a complaint.
We are accusing the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister and the Justice Minister of complicity. That's to say, to have aided Al-Masri to escape from the legal proceedings awaiting him at the International Criminal Court by returning him to Libya.
For this journalist who covers the judicial system in Italy, the liberation of the Libyan senior official is far from accidental.
It was probably a question of national interest, because the arrest could have caused diplomatic problems between Italy and Libya. The risk was that Libya would open the floodgates, creating an excessive influx of illegal migrants into Italy in retaliation.
With this somewhat David and Goliath legal fight, Lam is hoping to get justice for himself and for the thousands of migrants who suffer from violence and torture in Libya.
Well, to discuss, we're joined now by Lorenzo Kamel. He's an author, also professor of history at the University of Turin. Lorenzo, thanks so much for being with us this evening. We heard some harrowing testimony from that man there in that report, a migrant. Libya has long been criticised, this is far from the first time, over its treatment of refugees. Why does not enough seem to be happening to clamp down on what's actually happening to these people before they get on boats to cross the Mediterranean?
Yes, because the problem, let's say that the debates are always focused on an issue connected to Al-Masri or figures like him. But the problem is that structural issues are not tackled. So, for instance, are not tackled the reason why these people are moving and are trying to reach European shores. For instance, there is not much debate about the ongoing exploitation of African natural resources by European companies, as the Panama Papers was, for instance, confirming. There are over 1,400 European and American companies that through tax havens are exploiting still today the natural wealth of these countries. There is not much debate, for instance, on the flows of weapons from European countries that are sold in African and Middle Eastern countries. And for instance, we know in Yemen and a number of other areas, this plays a major role. There is not much debate about climate migrants used to flee African countries because of the effect of climate change. And there is not much debate about the fact or importance of moving from crisis management to crisis prevention. This includes rejecting the policy of outsourcing migration management. That is a short-term solution that has created an economic boom in a number of centers, some of them located in desert areas, becoming an industry that profits of the most vulnerable ones. So let's say that all these structural issues are largely missing. So in the debates that we have in Italy and other European countries, the debates is just about, let's say, we can't help all of them here or other issues. And once again, these are debates that speaks to the gut, to the instinct of people, but that do not tackle the structural condition why we see millions of people trying to move from these areas.
As you say, short-term policies are often formulated with an eye more on public opinion rather than on longer-term solutions, Lorenzo. But what do you make of the fact that just today the EU paved the way essentially for member states to set up migrant return centres outside the EU, as we have seen Italy doing when it comes to Albania?
Yes, once again, these are short-term solutions, while if these European politicians would be serious in tackling the situation, for instance, would start to tackle the fact that Iranian from Niger, where 87% of the population has no access to electricity, produce about 33% of France's electricity, so 1/3 of the electricity that is produced in France. Or if you think in Nigeria, where the largest number of migrants arrive in Italy, we know that OPL 245, that is the largest oil block in Africa. So we know that somehow, thanks to a system that they also take advantage of local corrupt leadership, somehow local population in Nigeria don't get one single penny out of these major natural resources. So once again, we focus on Albania, we focus on these shortcuts because somehow it's a way of hiding the structural issues, and somehow it's a way also of not discussing it publicly, because for politicians this would consider as a major problem, because once that you face these issues, you really touch the structural interests behind migration.
And does this suggest, do you think, does it signal a significant change in policy from Europe, or is it just simply down to the pressure that's being applied by countries like Italy?
I think that there is not any structural change, but change will arrive. It's enough to say that according to the United Nations, the population in Africa will grow from 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion by 2050, while some European countries will see their population decline. For example, my country in Italy will face a decline of population of 2 million in a matter of 20 years. So once again, these huge changes, demographic changes, at a certain point will oblige this country, my country included, to tackle the structural solution, while still today we focus much on NGOs and other issues that, once again, are easy targets, but they are not really the important issues when we discuss the structural solution to tackle of that.
And as we've been reporting, Italy is being accused of releasing Libyan officials, for example, wanted on international arrest warrants in return for limiting migrant flows coming from Libya. So what is Italy actually doing to manage migratory flows coming from Northern Africa? And what kind of support are those countries in Northern Africa actually being given?
Yes, let's say outsearching, that's the main somehow solution that has been found. Also, of course, in relation to Turkey, so the other side on the Eastern Mediterranean. So outsearching has been somehow the easy shortcut that we have witnessed in the last years, or let's say the last decades. And this, what are somehow the outcomes of all of that? We know. So we know reports, as you also are documenting, of beating, rape, killings, particularly since the 2017 Italy deal. Migrants today are sold openly in places like Seba and other cities in Libya. So this is something that somehow the outcomes of outsearching migration is precisely that.
And what kind of role then is Libya playing in managing those kind of rescue operations and also in returning migrants to their home countries?
I'd say that 4/5 of migration are internal migration within Africa. So let's say that just a tiny percentage of this amount of people move toward Europe. So let's say that this is mainly an African issue that is managed by African countries. So the Libyan authority in these last few years, of course, was speaking about dictators that are exploiting these, often using also the most brutal means. So they are exploiting this in order to gain economical benefit and also in order to be able to remain in power. So let's say that from an internal Libyan perspective, the goal, the end game is to keep the power and still profiting out of this of the sufferance of the millions of human beings.
And European leaders obviously caught up in the context of, the security challenges that are facing the continent. Would you be concerned that the issue of migrant rights, of what's happening to these people coming from Africa, that might slip through the cracks, so to speak, that it's not something that the EU is going to be necessarily focusing on?
Yes, let's say now there are at the moment some other priorities, so this rearm program and so on. So another program that speaks once again to the guts of people, to the instinct of people, but however, in another scenario does not tackle the structural issue. On a more general level, I think that until policymakers, and some of them of course understood that, but until policymakers do not realize that Africa is a voice to be heard and not a problem to be solved, to quote a Nigerian scholar that is Abiodun Malawu. So until that we don't reach that stage, certainly these issues, so the shortcuts that I was mentioning before, will remain the pillars of the policies implemented by European powers in relation to this context.
Lorenzo, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. That's Lorenzo Kamel, author and professor of history at the University of Turin in Italy.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from us for now.